Hello everyone, Mighty Benaya here. I have loaded up a game that I've been using to test on the new mechanics because I got a request to go over some of the new mechanics and how they impact gameplay. So there's a handful of things that I'm going to go over. One of them was not specifically published on the release notes, and so I want to go through them. But it's going to take a few minutes, so let's go through them one by one. The first big thing that is different is morale changes. So if you look at any of your territories, I am at war, and you will notice that being at war is not a morale factor anymore. Instead of having there being a penalty for being at war, there is instead a penalty for being too big. So your morale is reduced based on the size of your empire instead of being reduced based off of how many people you're at war with. This actually gives me an idea for eventually doing a game where I declare war on everyone. Because there's no penalty for it at this point other than popularity. But if I'm declaring war with everybody, it doesn't matter. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Total War franchise. Legend of Total War does a This is Total War campaign consistently. He's an Australian. He, as fair warning, uses a lot of language, so user beware. But he will do challenge campaigns where he declares war with everybody. I think that that's an interesting idea with the new mechanics because you're no longer penalized for being at war with everybody. So that is one of the major changes. You are penalized for the amount you expand, but you're not penalized for being at war. Another big change in relation to morale is construction time. So normally fortresses cost 24 hours. But because my morale is at 87% in this province, it only takes me 23 hours and 11 minutes to construct a fort. Now, 23 hours and 11 minutes, that's 50 minutes different. That is not that big of a deal. If there is, a couple seconds different, it might come into play. But where this really comes into play is with factories. Because factories take a lot longer to produce, and so the discounted time is a lot greater, and because the discounted time for artillery is also reduced. So you want high morale so that you can pump out early artillery faster, and you can pump out more of it over the course of the game. So that is a huge change that I think is really important to note. Having good morale early is going to be imperative. The last thing that I want to cover, and I will do a series with a strategy to implement all of these things, but the last big thing that I want to note is unit changes. So there are two major unit changes that I found. I haven't played through the entirety of the game, but there are two major changes to the units and then one major change to the battle mechanics. So the battle mechanics, you want to have a stack of troops as big as you can in the battle because you will have your most powerful 20 units attack at full power. It doesn't matter which units they are, so you don't have to have unit diversity like you did before. And flowering isn't going to be impactful at all. So your top 50 units will attack, your top 20 units will attack with full power. So you want to have stacks of powerful units. So you want to add cavalry, you want to add armored cars for the offensive and defensive values, but you also want to make sure to have lots of infantry in your stacks, the most powerful units you can have in your stacks because they will do more damage. The two units that were changed are balloons, which can now be built with a workshop instead of with a factory. So used to you had to build a factory, which meant you couldn't have balloons until day 11. It's day 6 and I have balloons, which is good for intelligence. You can see what has been constructed in adjacent provinces if you have line of sight. but you can't if you don't have line of sight. So that's another minor change that is helpful to know. So balloons are important, and they can be built more quickly. And then the other major change that wasn't really publicized, and I had to figure it out myself, is the military stats of infantry. So let's look real briefly. Infantry have a higher defense than they do attack. This is incredibly important to know because they have a higher defense than they have attack. You need to seriously outnumber your opponent if you are going to attack day one. And I would recommend not attacking day one. I would recommend defending your borders, increasing your troops' morale, because that will increase their effectiveness, and it will also increase their speed now. But day one attacks are less impactful unless you devote yourself fully to an attack and leave yourself exposed. I have seen 10 stacks, which should absolutely have the advantage over 5 stacks, get completely annihilated without a fort involved because of this defensive value. The defending units do more damage, and the defending units end up in a better place. So be careful when attacking. Balloons are helpful. Morale is king. Build up your morale. And again, I'm going to come out with a series that shows ways to do that at a later date, a strategy for doing that. But that is an incredibly important thing in this new update. That is all that I have for now. If you have any questions, feel free to comment. Soli Deo Gloria, and I will see you next time.